Don't stop.
Hi, thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Big K podcast. I am Zach Randles-Friedman, the host of this show, and I am so excited for you to hear the interview I did today with my guest, and which I'll tell you about in a moment. But my guest today reminded me of when I was living in New York, and he brought back so many memories for me just as he was talking about working on Broadway, off-Broadway, what he does, going to shows, going to Below Studio 54, doing all these things. Because when me and my husband lived in New York together, so we were there, I guess, on and off for like 17 years living together. And it's so weird that the last few months I have thought like, God, wouldn't it be kind of great to live in New York again? Even though I know it's really not a reality because I need a house and I'm not a multi-trillionaire or millionaire or whatever heir. So we would have to live in a, 2-bedroom, 1,200 square foot apartment and pay $7,000 a month rent. And I just can't imagine living in that small of a space after we've have a house like we have now. So it's not reality, but I have friends there. And last time I was in New York, it just really made me I missed it a little bit. And I know it's not for me anymore because it's so expensive and it's so chaotic sometimes. And my husband definitely is not into moving back to New York ever. He wants the opposite. He wants us to move to a farm in Vermont or New Hampshire and have no neighbors and I don't know, have a bunch of chickens and cats or something, who knows. But we've got to come together and figure out where we want to live eventually, in the long term and buy a house. But right now we're on the opposite pages. I like being in Boston. He's ready to get out of here and doesn't want to have any neighbors in sight. He wants to start a commune or something, I think, and who knows, maybe start a cult or something. I don't know what's happening, but talking with my guest today, he was talking about just the performing at the cabarets and how you can go see these off-Broadway shows and stuff. And that's what me and Andrew would always do. We would sometimes do this every weekend or one time during the week after work, where we had some, I'm trying to think what the name of, audience extras, which it was you pay this yearly membership fee, which was nothing. It was $100. And then you go to this website and then any tickets that they haven't sold or that came up for some reason because of cancellations, the day before or something, they would put them out there on this website and you could buy them for $5. And so we got to see so many Broadway shows and off-Broadway shows and off-Broadway shows using this thing called audience extras. And his father told us about it because his mom and dad were really into Broadway and going to see shows because they lived in Long Island. And we'd go see shows with them or they would go see them by themselves. And we just seen so many amazing artists and shows for no money. But we were there to support them. And when my parents would come into town, we would take them to see something. And we went to go see, I think it was a Tennessee Williams show with my parents. My parents just loved it. But me and Andrew and my guest today, Billy, we talked about this a little bit in the interview, how we would go to Below 54 and we would see these shows and some of these people that were in there performing are super famous now. And they were all so talented. And some of them were a little campy sometimes when we would see them. But every time we would leave Below 54, we would always leave there. One night we seen Bridget Everett. And I talk about this a little in my interview, but we left there and we felt so good. We were on such a high because it felt like a true New York moment. Seeing these people on a Wednesday night at this show and there was 10 guests maybe on stage. And they were all so talented. And you're sitting there, they each do 1 to 2, maybe 3 songs. And you're sitting there you're in awe of them because you're I can't believe that I'm sitting this close to this much talent. And it just brought back so many memories of how fun those times were in New York and just being able to see shows. And we don't do that in Boston. And there is some Broadway, off-Broadway scene in Boston, but it's nothing like New York. So, it just makes me realize that next time we go to New York, which I don't know, I feel we go every couple of months, we definitely have to plan to see some really good shows. And yeah, Billy struck that in me today. But let me tell you about Billy. So Billy's got a new song coming out. I did this interview on a Friday and we're putting it out today on Sunday because his song came out on June 19th on the Friday, and it's benefiting the ALZ organization. And he's got so much stuff in the works, and we talk about all that in the interview. And I played my card like I do whenever a guy I think is attractive comes on my show, because somebody reached out to me, says, do you want to interview him? I'm like, yeah, he sounds good. And then I looked to his website and I'm like, shit, this guy's so fucking cute. And I have somebody that would be perfect for him. But of course, he's taken. He's in a relationship. And so I have to, my matchmaking skills are still not going to be put to work. But maybe if it doesn't work out for Billy and his partner one day, I don't know, I'll be there to matchmake him. But maybe I need to do a podcast show about matchmaking. Maybe I need to get people to DM me and say that they want to be matched up, and I'll match them with somebody and bring them on the show and have them do like a speed dating thing. I have to think about this a little bit and put some creative thought into it. But I will be a matchmaker one day, and I will get a couple to marry, and I will either ordain the wedding or make an awesome speech at the wedding. That is something that is on my bucket list, and it will happen at some point. But in the meantime, I want you to enjoy my interview with Billy. He's really incredible. He's incredibly talented. And for being such a young guy and doing all this amazing work, like, I felt so privileged to talk to somebody like that, because I think he's going to do something huge and amazing and be winning a Tony Award one day. So enjoy my interview with Billy. Support him. Go download the song. It supports the Alzheimer's Association. So support his music, support good LGBTQ plus artists. So thanks for listening and enjoy the interview. Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have a Billboard-Charting music writer, and he's got lots of talent and he's got a whole resume that I could sit here for 35 minutes and go through. But welcome to the show, Billy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Zach. It's great to be here.
Okay, so I have to say, whenever the person that put me in touch with you sent me your thing, I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds great. And I'll just preface this first thing I'm going to say is that I'm married and we're not open, so I'm not trying to get with you or anything. But I'll just say this. Whenever I went to your website, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so cute. And then I started looking at your TikTok. I'm like, this guy's so hot. And I'm hoping he's single because I have so many friends in New York.
Oh my God. I am not. No.
Of course. My goal in this life is to be a matchmaker.
So Dolly Levi. Oh my God.
And so every cute guy has a partner. So I don't know. I mean,
you're so sweet. Thank you, though. That's how I get most of my podcast interviews. So it's perfect.
It's just because of the way you look.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, this auditory medium. Yeah.
No, but you're very talented, and I have to say, like, I can't believe all the amazing things that you have done. So we're going to talk about what's coming out as we're recording this today on Friday, June 19th. We'll talk about that in a minute. But tell me, when did you know exactly that you wanted to kind of dedicate your life to writing music and doing music? And like, how did you know that you were this talented?
Oh, well, I don't know when I knew I was talented, but I knew I wanted to, write music from a very early age. I was the kid, in third grade, who had spiral bound notebooks that, during math class, I would be sitting there writing musicals in them.
Yeah.
So from a very early age, I was just obsessed with the act of writing musical theater. And as I sort of got older, that was always sort of like my hobby, the thing that like I didn't know I could do, for a living one day. And I went to a high school program that was really writing based. I had a great theater teacher who sort of started to send out some of my stuff for competitions and everything. And I sort of started to win some awards and whatever at that age. And that was around the time when I was like, oh, okay, this is something that I could kind of do. So I credit Miss Ruthie Pincus at Hop High School
for
that. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the sort of origin story there. And I grew up on Long Island, so I was really close to the city, and I was able to come in and see a lot of theater that I like otherwise would not have been able to. So I really found a connection with, musicals that like most other kids my age were not listening to. And that sort of pushed me into sort of trying to tell kind of expansive stories with music at a young age. But
where in Long Island did you grow up?
I grew up in Hauppauge, Suffolk County.
Okay. My
Yeah.
husband grew up in Lawrence.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's, half hour away from each other on
Yeah.
Long
And
Island.
his
Yeah.
Sister lives in Brookville. I guess I shouldn't tell.
Oh,
I'm not
oh
saying
yeah.
her address, so I'm not
And
outing
what's
her.
her social security number? Do you
Yeah,
know?
it's
Okay, great.
9265.
Awesome. Great. Right. 69,
um,
69, 69. Great.
yeah, let me give you her address too. And I'll tell you when she's
Yeah.
going on vacation because
That's
you'll be able to just
that'd be great. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, her security codes and everything. It's perfect.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you were the youngest writer ever for Balloon Boy the musical. That was part of
The New York Musical
NY.
Theater Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that? I mean, is that? I feel
Yeah,
like it's such an accomplishment and like so amazing.
it was really cool because that was a festival that was really big. It has since sort of been disbanded, but back in the day, it's sort of where musicals like Next to Normal and Title of Show got their start. And those were the kinds of musicals that I was obsessed with at that age. And that was so that was a musical based off of the 2009 like infamous Balloon Boy scandal, where a
Mhm.
father said his son was stuck in a homemade weather balloon. A classic American
Yeah.
tale, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
But yeah, so that was actually one of those things that my high school theater teacher sort of brought to my attention, was like, you should apply to this. And I got in with the show, and it was produced, and it randomly got a bunch of press and a couple of other productions from there. So that was like a huge moment where I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is actually something that is like kind of feasible, and I should sort of like, really focus on writing, music. And, it's really funny, that show, it's in many ways, it's the start of my career. And a high school on Long Island, a performing arts high school, just did it for their spring musical last year, just randomly. So it was so
Yeah.
nice to just like get to go back and like, I mean, I haven't touched the show in 10 years. So it was nice to sort of sit back and be like, oh my gosh, like I totally see what, 17-year-old Billy was trying to do with this show. It was really special.
And we'll be right back. Okay, now back to the show. I guess if you were going to like a performing arts high school, your parents were super supportive of you doing this as a career, where other parents may like, oh no, you got to go be a doctor, lawyer, or whatever. You got to go to, do all this. So did you have really supportive family growing up then?
I really did. Yeah, I really did. They were and are the best. It was a very musical family. My dad plays trumpet and my mom sang, and, not professionally, but there was just a lot of music around the house, and my siblings were really musical too. So it was always something that was, supported and valued in the household. I don't know if they necessarily thought that like their son would go to school, to study playwriting, like, a made up bullshit career, but, but they are just so supportive, and they come out to everything. And it's really nice, growing up so close, that they can come to every opening night and everything and be a part of it. So
amazing.
Yeah.
So for my audience that's not necessarily part of the musical theater world, tell them what a composer, lyricist, like what does that type, what does that person do? What does that mean that they're capturing?
Yeah, totally. So it always depends on the show. I sometimes I do just lyrics, sometimes I do just music, sometimes I do book music lyrics, sometimes I do music and lyrics. But essentially, a composer, does the music for a show. The lyricist does the lyrics for the show. Book writer does the book for the show, which is the dialogue and the story. And how that process works, it's always different. Sometimes, it's an idea that I come up with, and I write the show sort of on spec, and I sort of shop it around and try to find a producer for it, or try to find a lead for it, and then bring it to a producer. And sometimes there's a producer who already has an idea, and they need a composer for it. So that is where this single that came out today, that's sort of where that all started, with this playwright and lyricist who came to me with this fabulous idea for a musical that I was just really into, and she needed a composer. So, for the last 2 years, we've sort of been going back and forth, and, she'll, gestate some lyrics, and I will sit down at the piano and set them to music. And this is sort of the first single from that show, as it sort of is starting its life, getting it out there. But,
yeah. Tell us about Big Man.
Yeah, so Big Man it's a really cool musical, sort of genre-bending musical, based on Cheryl Burke, who is the lyricist and book writer of the show, based on her father-in-law's experience with dementia and Alzheimer's. And at the end of his life, his Alzheimer's sort of had him thinking that he was close friends with the Rat Pack.
Okay.
So this musical sort of invents a character sort of going through something like that. So half the score is all sort of 60s Rat Pack style, and the other half is about this family going through, caregiving for their, father who is sort of going to pass away from dementia by the end of it. So it's this really cool two worlds sort of going against each other. The fantasy world where nothing is as it seems.
Yeah.
And then this world about sort of caregiving and going through that. So so we've been working on it for 2 years, and we are, this is the first of several singles as part of a larger concept album we're going to be putting out by the end of the year, and just attaching some great Broadway talent and singers to it. So we're really excited. We have a cool director, David Ratura, who has worked on The Great Gatsby and Moulin Rouge on Broadway, and he's directing it right now. And we're just, sort of doing one of my favorite parts of the journey of getting a musical up there is just sort of like exploring it and just sort of like getting a lot of valued friends and performers in the room, sitting around the table, reading it and learning the music, and just sort of asking all the questions about, how are we telling the story? So we're just super excited to get it out there. And this song is the sort of first song sung by this character's son, who is sort of finally like coming to terms that his, father is going through this and that he has to accept it. And it's just sung so beautifully by Ramin Karimloo, who is just such a talent, just such the voice is crazy and very handsome too, of course. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah.
Yes. So you've been described as the rising queer Billboard-Charting theater and pop songwriter. So what do you think about being named like that? I mean, I think that's kind of cool, actually.
Oh, it's awesome. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, what I love about it is I love saying yes to as many projects as possible and getting to be in as many different rooms as possible, and always making sure that I'm never writing the same kind of song twice, and because of that, it really allows me to sort of keep myself fresh, keep the work that I'm doing fresh. And in terms of the queer thing, it's like I'm really inspired by like queer stories, and I think we need a lot more crazy queer representation in the musical theater canon. I'm working on this one musical right now that we're hoping something will happen with very soon, called Foul Play, which is a big sort of queer fantasia about Chick-fil-A and rainbow capitalism. And I'm working on this other musical that's getting a production next year that's sort of like a queer retelling of the kidnapping of Frank Sinatra Jr. in 1963. Yeah. So I love sort of just like being able to like queer the narrative and also just sort of queer the musical theater canon, because, I think growing up, there were so many musicals that like explored queer themes, but were not explicit about it. And I think now we're sort of at a point where like we really can be, and audiences can accept that and take that. So, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Foul Play? Because I did read a little bit about it. I think it's crazy, but I think it's the best thing I've ever heard too.
Oh my God. Thank you. Well, I hope we get to share it with you soon when it gets up. But we did Foul Play is a musical comedy about two queer musical theater writers who are hired to write an apology musical for Chick-fil-A. And we did a production of it off-Broadway a couple years ago with Ty Blue directing, who is the director of Titanic, which is having a great Broadway run right now. And and it is this musical comedy that me and my friend Yoni came up with the idea for a couple years ago because we were really obsessed with the culture of industrial musicals. And for those who don't know, industrial musicals like in the 60s, 70s were when, random companies, General Motors or whatever, just like Ford, like would hire Broadway songwriters and Broadway performers to put on like a one-night musical for all their clients about how great, this refrigerator is or whatever, So we gotten, to talking like what would be the craziest company that could do an industrial musical, and we came up with Chick-fil-A. And so it sort of is this musical that is all about sort of rainbow capitalism and what the Pride aisle at Target every June, means. And of course, there's a big, crazy queer twist at the end that I won't spoil. But we had a great cast the last time around, and we have some singles out from that as well that folks can listen to. And I think there might be some stuff happening on the horizon for it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Can we talk about a couple of your other projects? So, The Little Black Book. I would love to know. So, it's a musical about Heidi Fleiss, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so, what was your connection? What made you want to do this? 'Cause I think it sounds so, again, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I love stories that are sort of like pulled from the headlines and pulled from the tabloids.
Yeah.
I just like think that like that is sort of like our modern day like, history play sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's honestly in many ways like celebrity and fame, it's like our modern day religion, right? So it's like I love exploring that. And a couple years ago I was reading an article about Heidi Fleiss, and it was in, I think, the Hollywood Reporter, and I didn't know who she was. I wasn't alive, in the early 90s when she was doing her thing.
Yeah.
But now she lives in the deserts of Nevada with 40 parrots. And it was about that sort of journey from crazy, like Grey Garden style, journey. So that just got me really interested in her as a character. And I just sort of went down the Heidi Fleiss rabbit hole and just sort of watched and consumed everything about her. And that sort of led me to this musical, which is, about a Heidi Fleiss now, living in the deserts of Nevada with 40 parrots, sort of as she has to make this choice of whether to sell all the names of the clients in her little black book to try to sort of keep the lights on, something that she has never done, essentially. So it's we put out a concept album for that musical in 2021 during COVID, and we recorded with a different. It's essentially a one-woman musical with like 3 backup girls. There's a sort of like Bette Midler Divine Madness element to it. So the album has a different Broadway lady singing Heidi on every track, but in the show itself, it's just one person. And I'm developing it right now with Orfeh, who's an incredible Broadway talent, just a gigantic voice and a fabulous personality.
Tony nominee too.
Yeah, Tony nominee. Yeah, for Legally Blonde, and she did Pretty Woman, and she's a producer on the Lost Boys right now. She just did Burlesque over in London in the Cher role. So we did the show in full at the Bowery Ballroom last year, and we're sort of getting plans together for the next sort of iteration of it, hopefully by the end of the year. But Orfeh is just freaking transcendent in it, man.
Yeah.
She is. It's and from the beginning, before I knew her, I was like writing it with her in mind. So it's like a really cool sort of full circle moment to get to collab with her on it. And she just did a song from it at her big Sony Hall concert a couple weeks ago, and it was just like, oh man, yeah, she eats. She is so great. Yeah. And it's cool. Heidi Fleiss is supportive of the project, and I've gotten.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah,
Do you think
yeah.
she'll come? You think she'll come to an opening night?
Yeah, I think when we have that right opening, she will absolutely. We would love to have her. But yeah, I got to chat with her when the album came out, and we were doing the sort of the press rounds for it, and just chatted with her for like an hour, and she was just so cool. And so I always say it's like if Lin-Manuel Miranda got a chance to talk to Alexander Hamilton. It's just sort of like, oh my God, I know everything about you. And what's so interesting about her is that she like doesn't think about that part of her life at all anymore.
Wow.
It's like it really is about like the birds, for her now. And it's a really noble cause that she has taken on. And so hopefully we'll get to have her at an opening night soon. Yeah.
Amazing. So some of your work has been performed by major stars.
Yeah.
So Bernadette Peters, Mandy Patinkin, Tituss Burgess. There was another one.
Oh God! I mean, there have been a bunch. I mean,
the SNL woman. I can't.
Oh, Rachel Dratch. Yes,
Rachel Dratch.
Yeah, she did.
I mean,
Vape. Yeah.
like, how does that feel to have these major people that are so talented, like performing what you created?
It's really cool, and again, it's that sort of mentality that I really believe in, of just like sort of like saying yes to the projects and not never knowing where they're going to go. I mean, sometimes they go nowhere, and sometimes like you end up sitting 10 feet away, from Bernadette while she is like singing a song that you co-wrote for a web series, So it is, I do have to sort of remind myself to, savor those kind of like pinch me moments, because those are the performers that like we all grow up obsessed over, like Rachel Dratch, like she did this Grease parody that I wrote called Vape. I did the lyrics for it, and we did it at Town Hall last year, and she came and she did Teen Angel for it, and it was just like so cool. I they were rehearsing, and I was just sitting in the theater, so I was like, I'm gonna go out and I'll pick up Rachel from her car, and I'll walk her backstage, so it's like, it's cool. You have these sort of like fleeting moments with incredible performers, where they just sort of, you get to watch them sort of put their all into everything. So it's really cool.
I mean, did you ever? So I've interviewed several people that are part of Broadway theater.
Yeah.
I know people that also were part of this. It's like its own little community in New York, right?
Totally.
I feel like you all know each other in some way or another. And
Totally.
so is that comforting in a way to know that, just that maybe you're considered for something that you never would have thought you would do because you're friends with this person. They see your talent. Like, is that kind of what it feels like?
Yeah, I mean, for better and for worse, it's like everybody knows everybody, and also everybody knows everybody, is the
Yes.
sort of thing. So sometimes it can feel kind of insular breaking in, but it is really nice to, go to those parties and you're running in, the opening night parties, and you're running into the same people over and over again, and everybody's talking about what's coming in next season and what's going to close soon, and, blah, 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 blah. But it is a community, and I definitely have, a lot of the jobs that I've gotten, a lot of the musicals I've gotten, or because I know this person who knows this person who knows that person. And there is that sort of like really nice network of people sort of like looking out for each other and looking out for like cool, young, hungry talent too, So yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's like from a composer's standpoint, it can feel hard to break in sometimes, so that's why it's just really nice to know, when you do know that there are people who are really looking out for you and who want you at that opening night party or whatever, it makes it that much more meaningful.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. Do you know Bridget Efford?
I don't know her personally, but I love her.
Oh, God, I want her. She's my...
Oh my God, you have to get her.
I'm dying to. Dan's going to help me, but I'm dying.
Make it happen. Make it happen.
I just interviewed Justin Elizabeth a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, great.
He knows her, and he's like, yes, I'll help you make it happen. But it's her, and the other person is like really way out there is Madonna. I would love to interview. But,
oh my God. She was just in New York. She just did a big Times Square concert.
I see. And my friends were there, like live streaming it for me, like as they were there.
The city was abuzz that day. I was in Midtown seeing everybody come out from Times Square with their Madonna t-shirts being like, what happened? This is crazy.
My friend's like, oh yeah, I got a Grindr alert. I'm like, really? That's how? Like,
sounds right.
So is there a show that you would love to be a part of that you, or even like, if you could pick any show that's out there today or a show that's coming into the future, about, is there something that would be like a dream?
Well, I always say this last year on Broadway were like the 3 musicals that were like my dream musicals that I wanted to write. I always wanted to do the Tammy Faye musical. I always wanted to do that Death Becomes Her. And I always wanted to do Queen of Versailles. And I think honestly all 3 of them like had, really just like a lot of good stuff going on, even though 2 of them did not run. So yeah, I mean, right now it's like what I'm really interested in is more sort of like collaborators, that I want to work with. I saw Titanic off Broadway early in its run, and I left like so depressed because I was like, that is exactly the kind of musical that I want to do, and I need to work with that director.
Yeah.
And, after just like sort of email threads and trying to get connected, we finally got connected with Ty, and, we pitched him Foul Play, and he was so game for it. So it has sort of become this like engine and I like get to like look back and think on that moment like 3-4 years ago of seeing Titanic being like, fuck, how do I work with this guy? So that's the sort of thing that like really drives me, right now as an artist is like who I get to work with, who do I want to work with, but there are certainly like movies that I'm like, oh, I would love to like get the rights to that,
Yeah, so I would like to talk about, that's one thing I wanted to ask you, like, do you only want to do kind of more of the live music Broadway shows, or would you ever want to do like compose music for a movie?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, I would love to sort of like, I always say like, I want Mark Shaman's career. I want to be able to sort of like, hop from theater to film to TV. I'd love to write for like children's TV, I would love to write for Sesame Street, because like, that's like, what taught me, about music, when I was a little kid. So I'm really interested in just sort of like doing everything that I can, because what I just love writing songs. I love telling stories, in song. And so any sort of opportunity wherever that may be is really exciting for me. Yeah.
So I want to just kind of give my audience a little bit more details about you. Yeah. So you're a 2-time MAC Award winner. You're a Jonathan Larson Grant finalist. You're a William Finn Award winner. So you've got a lot of recognition for being so young, but you've also clearly been in the room when things almost happen, sometimes.
Sure.
So what does that grind of developing kind of musicals actually look like for somebody like you? Like, is there ever a moment where you're just like, fuck, like that was so close, but it didn't happen? And then other times you're just like, I can't believe this happened.
100%. They say that on average it takes 7 years for a musical to make it to Broadway. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background.
I'm surprised mine's not meowing too, so I get it. It's okay. It's all
Love
good.
That. Hey, Daff. Okay. Yeah, they say it's a 7-year journey to get a show, from first draft to Broadway.
Yeah.
And, sometimes that starts like with a producer commissioning the project. And sometimes that starts with me and a co-writer shopping it around to producers, And so a lot of times that journey can include an out-of-town tryout at a theater or a regional partnership or, an off-Broadway run first, before it gets there. And a lot of times too, what is important is about the packaging, right? Like who can you get to star, who can you get to direct, and what theaters are available. It really comes down to that. There's so many different factors at play. And a lot of times it takes just like a long time to like even get an email back, from about one star, about one theater or whatever, So what I, am really interested in doing is sort of going in a more alternative route. I love releasing music, and doing concept albums before the shows, are up on their feet, so that you can sort of start to build momentum and build fans of the show that way and build the sort of journey of the show that way. And I think that like with Little Black Book, for example, that was so helpful. Because we put out this concept album and got some press for it, and that was able to connect us with producers and people who got really interested in the show, and and our leading lady and our director, and different theaters that are interested. So there's really no right way to do it, save for just like hustling and grinding and just like sending it out there, sending it to different competitions, sending it to different festivals or whatever, and also just like having 18 different shows in the fire and happening at once, there's some folks who like have one show and that's their baby and that's the one that they want to do. And then, for me, what I really find that I thrive on is having 18 different shows at once. So it's like, all right, well, if I'm not going to get an email back on this one today, then I'm going to, go do a demo for this one today and go answer that Zoom today, so it's about just sort of like, having as many different irons in the fire as possible and being excited by as many different stories as possible,
So you have a lot of things coming out in 26 and 27. So what does your life look like to you? Like, what would success feel like to you? And I'm not talking about money or fame, but like, what would make you feel like your life is a success with these projects?
Totally. I think getting to tell as many different diverse stories as possible, at the same time having those musicals sort of feel like of a piece of each other, a piece of sort of one larger sort of I just saw Disclosure Day the other day, and I really liked it. What do you think of it?
So I liked it. My husband's like, I don't like it.
So that's very much in this house as well. Yeah. I liked it, and it got me thinking so much about how Steven Spielberg, how that is a part of his sort of larger story that he is trying to tell, and how there are so many like different pieces of other things that he has worked on within that. So I think really being able to, not just tell like one story, but tell like one large story as an artist over several different mediums and over several different musicals and pieces is something that really excites me, whether or not that's intentional, as I'm writing them. But I think as a writer and as an artist, in all things we do, I think we end up being drawn to the same types of stories over and over again and keep sort of trying to say similar things over and over again. And I think, just to be able to have a sort of clear end to that vision is really exciting to me. Yeah, that would feel like success, but that, and also just getting to work with as many different incredible singers and performers and musicians as possible. Like that is what I really love, is building a network and building a tribe of people that I get to make theater and art with. And, part of the joy of having so many different projects happening at once is the ability to get to call on the same friends over and over again and be able to be like, hey, come do this table read, come sing this demo, and because, some of these collaborators have such a broad sense of like context for which I'm writing, all these different shows, they are both bringing that and are also like bringing honesty as collaborators to that,
Mhm.
you know, being like, this one's not your best, try again, you know,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
like always nice and helpful, you know. But so yeah, so I think just as building as sort of wide of uh, a tribe as possible, I think of you know, fellow-minded collaborators is something that really fuels me.
And would you ever, like, be open to, I mean, because they're talking about pop
Yeah,
music, would you ever be open to writing a song
please,
or
yeah.
working, so, if a Madonna
Mm.
came to you or,
I should be so lucky. My God, please. I would love that. Yeah,
yeah,
my
uh,
God. I mean, that's very much like, you know, again, like I never want to write the same kind of song twice, you
yeah,
know? So getting to do something like that would be such a gift because it's like, oh my God, that's just so not the sort of world that I live in, you know, writing for like pop artists. My hero is Randy Newman, who got his start, you know, writing for like the pop artists of, you know,
yeah.
the 60s. And like that to me is so just like yummy, is just to be able to like write a song and hear like 12 different people sing it and cover it. Like that'd be so cool.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, now back to the show. Do you have a dream person that you would wanna collaborate with?
Ooh, gosh. I mean, Cher would be
Oh,
awesome,
yeah.
you know? Like, come on, come on. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably her. Yeah.
Awesome, I love that. Have you ever thought about going out and doing something like at in P-Town for the
Mm,
summer and
yeah.
just kind of doing live performance?
Yeah, I have. I would love that. I actually write every year. There's a drag performer in P-Town named Paige Turner, who puts on a great show, a new, you know, show that she writes every year. I think at the Post Office Cafe.
Yeah.
I think this is her 5th year out there, and I write original songs for her every year. So, you know, in a way, it sort of feels like I have my own little like P-Town residency every
Yeah.
summer. But yeah, but I would love to. I mean, you know, I'd love to go out there with a couple of performers and get to hang out and do some queer musical theater all summer, you know? Yeah.
Or even for, like, a week or something, you
Yeah,
know, because
exactly.
like, John Hill, I don't know if you know who John Hill
Yeah, John
is.
Hill. Yeah, John's great. Yeah.
He's going out there for like, I think maybe 2 weekends even in
Yeah.
July. So
Yeah.
he's, you know, and he's so fantastic. He was
Yeah.
on my show a couple of months ago, and I wanna go to P-Town just because I wanna see
Yeah.
him. So,
Yeah, I mean, he's so great. And like that's the kind of thing that's like sort of where I really got my start, was like doing the cabaret scene,
yeah,
you know, and like when I was in college, like I would just, you know, do 2-3 shows at 54 Below and the Green Room and Metropolitan Room, you know, every year with just like a group of folks doing like truly like cabaret material. Like and it's been a minute since I've gotten to like sit down and write like a song that is like truly like just about the jokes like I was able to in those old days, you know?
yeah.
So like so I do kind of miss that just as a medium, you know, as the sort of art form of cabaret. Yeah.
Yeah, we would go to when I lived in New York, we would go
Mm,
to Below 54, and then
mm,
there was, it's the first time I think I seen Bridget Everett when she wasn't that big. I knew
yeah,
she was Amy Schumer's best friend, but that's
got it.
all. But this was so early, like, I friended her on Facebook as a friend, and we were friends, like,
Uh-huh.
on Facebook,
Yeah.
so that she was really not that big yet, and, like, Aaron Markey, I don't know if you know who Aaron
Yeah, of
Markey is.
course. Yeah. Aaron Mark is
Aaron
great.
Markey was there, and there was, like, a
Yeah.
bunch there was, like it was, like, so like, me and my husband, he grew up, like, in Long Island in New York,
Oh,
and
nice.
so
Right.
when we left,
Mm.
I'm like, "Didn't that" we both said almost at the same time, "This felt like such a New York night." Like,
Yes. Me and my boyfriend always say that all the time. Anytime we get to like go out and like just like see different folks at different venues and bop around and just sort of like
yeah.
get a sense of sort of like life in like one little neighborhood like that. I mean, that is that perfect New York night. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, I think your story is amazing. What would you kind of tell, like, a queer, you know, person that's thinking about getting into this? Like,
Mm,
what's your advice to them, like, that as they're younger, and
mm,
maybe their family doesn't support them, or maybe they do, and
yeah.
but, you know, what would you kinda tell them?
Totally. Well, I would, you know, first and foremost say just like keep writing and just like keep going and get your stuff out there in any way that you can. You know, when I was growing up, like the thing was like I got into like understanding what a new musical theater writer was by watching videos from, you know, new musical theater writers doing their sets, you know, at 54 Below and being like, oh my gosh, these are like these cool, you know, young people who are writing. And I think now, like, you have TikTok and you have YouTube still, and you have, it's so much easier to record and upload music on Spotify and everything. So I think just like making sure that people can hear your stuff is so important.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I think it's also just about like, when I was like just starting out, like I was just like emailing everybody cold, and like you get one response and it's worth it out of 100,
Yeah.
So I think just like being committed to like, just that hustle, and just like reaching out to everybody that you can, and letting other writers that you admire, letting them know that you admire them, and introducing yourself that way, I think is so important. And just like knowing that like there are so many opportunities, so many ways to get your work out there and heard, like find incredible performers, like get, like go move to the city and find, those performers who align with you and align with like your taste and the kind of, music that you want to make, and make it with them.
Amazing. I want to know if you do this. And if you don't, I'm going to ask if you could.
Yeah.
Do you ever take a moment and kind of reflect back on all this amazing music and art that you've made?
Yeah.
And you think about, this is going to be around forever, or for a very long time. And like how many people that you've made happy hearing your music, and the people that you've made happy when they've been able to perform this amazing stuff. Do you ever think about and reflect on that?
I do. I just moved, last year was my 10-year anniversary of living in the city. And, that was just like a really meaningful moment for me, because it was also the year that like, a bunch of things were sort of starting to percolate. A lot of longtime projects were sort of starting to like happen. And so there do come those sort of like moments, like every once a year or whatever, or like, where I will, or even if I'm like sitting with, friends of mine who I've been doing this with for a long time, right? Who like we did concerts with, 10 years ago, and, reflecting on those songs and those concerts, and just sort of how far we've come, and like what we've been able to do with our careers since then is really meaningful to me. And, I just, every year with ASCAP, which is, it represents songwriters, you have to sort of send in a list of, to your knowledge, how many times and places your songs were performed throughout the year. So I try to sort of keep a list of, who's doing what in concert and everything. And then, spend a very long day sort of accumulating it all into one sort of submission. And that's always really cool to be like, oh my gosh, right. Yeah. Like there was, somebody in like China singing this one song, that one month. Like it's so that's always like really cool. And there have been a couple sort of just like, pinch me sort of meaningful moments, that really remind me that like, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing the right thing. So
amazing. So Billy has a single that's out today that we're recording this. You're going to see this a few days later, but it's the first single from the original stage work, Big Man, a new musical. It's currently in development. It will release its first single. It's called Wanted to Believe. It's in streaming and digital platforms. And the great thing about this, it's benefiting the Alzheimer's Association, alz.org. It's performed by a Tony-nominated Broadway and West End star, Ramin. I don't want to butcher his
Ramin Karimloo.
I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm glad you said it. So, and if anybody wants to find out more about you, I will put your Instagram and your website in the description of this podcast, and or video, however they're watching this, and I will put a link to the song so people can go and download it and buy it. So
thanks. Yes. And again, 100% of the proceeds go to the Alzheimer's Association. So we're hoping to write them a nice check when all is said and done. But yeah.
That's so amazing. I'm so glad I got to interview you and talk with you.
Thank you, Zach.
You're doing great work. And I love it that you're dedicating this money to the Alzheimer's Association. And so you're super talented. I'm glad Dan put me in touch with you, and I got to discover your music and stuff, because I think you're amazing. So thanks so much for being on.
Thanks.
And for anybody, if this episode resonated with you, share it with somebody. Share Billy's song. Have them download it. Support his art. And thanks for being on, Billy.
Thanks so much, Zach. I'll see ya.